Welcome back. So let's just dive right in. So here we are. I have the sutra on the screen, and I'm going to chant it for you so you can hear it one more time. Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udaranam. Okay, so that's our sutra, our featured sutra for today. And we're really getting into the details of what avidya means, what it represents. Okay? But before we get into the word for word translation of this sutra, I want to give you a moment to write down the swaras, the special demarcations that indicate whether the note is a high note, a middle note, or a low note. All right? And while we have those on the screen, I'm going to chant it one more time so that you can hear it and kind of follow along. Okay? Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udaranam. Okay, so hopefully you can hear the how my voice, the pitch of my voice goes down, comes back to the middle reference note, and then goes high, depending on where those marks are. So those marks are just special notes for us to practice. Okay. So make sure you have those written down for your personal notes so that you can practice on your time. We have it one more time, and I'm going to chant it again. Again, follow along, but also pause the tape when I get finished and try to recite it back, and then listen to me again and try to recite it again at your leisure and at whatever pace you find comfortable. Okay? Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udaranam. Okay. Now let's get into the word for word meanings of this sutra. And you know, I'm always curious, once we go through the word for word sutras, what are you writing down in the workbook as your interpretation of this whole sutra? Like, what words would you put it into if you had to explain this one sutra to another person in one sentence? And what would that look like for you? Just curious, just curious. So shoot me an email or, you know, DM me on Instagram or whatever. Let me know. All right, but let's get into it. Avidya, we talked about this on the previous sutra. It means not ignorance, but profound misunderstanding, or like a deep, abysmal confusion. Like we think we know, but we don't. And what we think we know is like utterly wrong, you know? That's avidya. And that's how we are in life when we haven't given anything a real thought. If we're just going through the motions, you know, say we went to school and then we went to college or the military, or we just got a job out of high school, you know, whatever. We're just going through the motions of life and we're paying the bills every 30 days. You know, as long as we're just doing that, we're not really aware of what's going on, right? Because that's not our reality or the purpose of our existence. It's our reality as long as we believe it is. You know, like they say, perception is reality. But is our perception actually based in reality, right? What kinds of foods are we putting into our body? All right? Are those foods making us healthy? Are they causing us to heal? Or are they giving us disease, right? So we can see just based on some of our behavior, some of the things that we do, whether or not our world or our worldview, the way we see reality, is based in avidya or reality. And trust me, you know, if we've never given this a thought, we're basing our world on avidya, right? And that's the illusion of it all. If we get upset, if we get anxious, you know, all of these things are based on avidya, as we'll learn, because the other kleshas are born out of avidya. avidya has to exist first. It's like, you know, we have, in our existence, we have ether, right? We have this space. If the space didn't exist, then we wouldn't be able to fill it with this other stuff that helps make up our reality, okay? So avidya is like that fundamental thing that allows everything else to exist in this, this klesha world, okay? So let's keep going. Kshetram, and that's exactly what it means, field, a place. It's like the fertile ground, so we can plant these seeds in this fertile soil for these other things to sprout. Okay, so kshetram means field. Straightforward. Uttaresham, right? So uttaresham means that from this field, or following the fact that this field exists, now some other things can happen, right? Some other things can sprout out of that which already is. That provides the ground or the space or the fertile soil for these other things to sprout. Now, let's talk about what those are. Prasupta, all right? So when I think of avidya as a field, in some ways I think of it as a, the other kleshas are like klesha seeds. And the seeds can be dormant, right? We know if they haven't been watered, you know, an acorn can last or exist for thousands of years, but until it gets stimulated by some water, life never starts to sprout. So prasupta means dormant, lying at rest, right? It has the potential, but it just hasn't been activated yet. Tanu means little sprouts, right? So it can be dormant, prasupta, or it can be a little sprout. And remember, tanu, I'm saying, listen to the words. If we listen to the words, then we can hear what they mean. Like I said, listen to the word klesha. We can hear the word clash in klesha. Well, if we listen to the word tanu, we can almost hear the word tiny in tanu, right? I mean, think about how language has evolved over millennia. You know, here we are in 2019, right? But how many other thousands of years has language existed? You know, like language just didn't come up out of thin air. It just didn't pop up, right? It started somewhere, and then it kind of, you know, drifted, you know, and it went to other places, and people carried the language with them. And when they went and started their families or their villages or their towns, they still spoke the language, but then the language evolved differently for one town than it did in another town. But we can still hear the similarities in the sound of language, and we can even see the similarities in what they mean, right? Tanu means thin, lean. It actually means tiny, right? Okay, let's keep going. Vichina, right? Cuts or breaks is how it's often described, this word vichina. But another way to think of this is, you know, fluctuations or having its progress interrupted or interfered with, right? So something might have sprouted, it might be growing, but then something might happen to cause that growth to kind of slow down a little bit or fluctuate, or something else might pop up that has a little more power and is getting a little more influence. So we're talking about the kleshas, right? And that might be the one that dominates at the time. And this one will be kind of suppressed a little bit, but it will still be there, right? So it gets cut off because something else is rearing its head. It's like when we think of a garden. In a garden, you know, as long as we're tending our garden, we can grow beautiful fruits and vegetables. But if we neglect our garden, weeds will start to grow. And we can just neglect those weeds and not pull those weeds, and the weeds can actually take over, right? And when those weeds take over, they can interfere with what else is happening. So they can stunt the growth of other things, okay? And eventually, udaranam. So we can think of the kleshas as weeds if we want to. They can be all pervading. They can actually take over. They can be dominant. They can be full on, and there can only be one alpha klesha operating at a time, according to Patañjali, okay? So when we look at the kleshas, Avidya is the field, it's the ground from which the other kleshas sprout. And the other kleshas are asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. Okay? And only one can be the dominating klesha at a time. Not saying that you can't have different ones dominating your world. When you think about the span of a week, right? Different ones might be dominating at different times, but no two will be happening simultaneously, is what I'm saying. Okay? So that's avidya. Avidya is the field from which all the other kleshas sprout. And those kleshas can be dormant, they can be little sprouts. And we recommend, weed your garden when the kleshas are small, when they're tiny sprouts. Don't let them get big. It's easier to put out a fire when it's just a spark or just a little itty bitty flame. Don't wait until it's a blazing inferno to try to put it out with a bucket of water. It's not going to work. Or a jacket, it's just not going to work. So don't let it catch on fire. Don't let the weeds overtake your garden. Then the work is just too much. Okay. So what does this whole sutra mean? What is one interpretation? Well, this is how I chose to articulate it on this given day. And I encourage you to go to the workbook to look at how the 7 other authors explain the sutra or translate the overall sutra. But avidya is the field from where the other kleshas sprout, which may, referring to the kleshas, be dormant, tiny, interrupted, or full on and completely active. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell, right? And remember, we're building as we go. Like we start with Yoga Sutra 2.1, chapter 2, Yoga Sutra 1, and then like a surgical instrument, we're taking this needle and we're threading a tapestry that really explains Sādhana Pāda. Okay, it's very beautiful the way this all unfolds, but everything is threaded together, as you'll see as we continue this journey together. But that does it for today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for Yoga Sutra 2.5, where we go a little further with avidya. Tomorrow we're going to talk about, well, what is it that we're actually profoundly confused about? So I think you'll find that interesting. So stay tuned and we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, take very good care of yourself. Later.